Hey guys, so in today's video I wanted to talk about my opinions on how to self-critique your own artwork, because a lot of times when you post online a lot of people will give you their opinion of your art and their critique of it, but personally for me I don't always take that very well, just because I don't like being told what to do differently. I'm kind of very independent, and so if you're like me, sometimes it's good to be able to see your own mistakes and to know how to improve them. So this is just the kind of stuff that I've learned as I've been drawing and improving and that kind of thing. Hopefully it'll be of some use to you, and also if you have any either ideas or suggestions, just leave them down in the comments. That would be awesome for everybody else who is maybe struggling with this topic. So the first thing that I would say is to have a vision of what you would like to see improved in your artwork, and then analyze those specific areas. Sometimes when you look at the whole of a piece or just your artwork, you might not know exactly what you would like to improve. You're just looking at it and you're like, well, what am I looking for? And so if you have a certain vision about what you would like to see improved, such as your anatomy, your colors, your lighting, that kind of thing, you can be able to focus in on those things in your artwork and to look at them and see how they can be changed. Also, setting aside your work for at least a day if you're working on a certain piece. Usually setting it aside for a couple of days and working on other pieces at the same time. It's going to help you clear your mind and help you look at the image with like a fresh perspective. And so that way, something that your eyes just got used to as you're drawing, it looks fine to you, maybe anatomy or proportions or lighting, something like that. You can come back to it and see that it's a little bit wonky and correct that if you're still working on a certain piece. In the same way, if you're still working on a piece, taking breaks to look at the piece from different angles will help you tremendously. A lot of times, if you watch any of my time lapses and speed paintings, the digital paintings on my channel, you will see that I zoom in and out a lot, and sometimes it can be kind of like giving you a seizure. That's just because I need to see my paintings from far away as well as close up, because a lot of times they're focusing on the details, and if you zoom out, the piece will look somehow weird, like there will be too many details in one place, or the details will be too small and too intricate, that kind of thing. And so just taking a second to look at your artwork from farther away, maybe even a couple of feet away until your painting is a tiny speck. I'm kidding. That can still help you figure out what's wrong with it. You can see if the general colors are okay, the proportions, from close up it can look fine, but from farther away it can look very wonky. Also, holding up your work in a mirror or taking a picture on your phone and flipping the image, both things can help you check to see if your proportions, perspective, colors, all that kind of stuff, if they're right. And if they look really weird and messed up when you flip them around, you can see exactly what you could correct. It's much easier than just looking at your image without flipping the image or looking at it from farther away. The next thing I would say is to practice drawing with reference. So, for example, if you want to draw somebody and you want to draw a certain pose and you would like to improve and be able to see the mistakes in your artwork, try to sketch out a certain pose without any reference, just using your imagination and your memory of what that pose looks like, and then go back and redraw that with a reference for it. And then you can compare the two drawings, full sketches, don't spend too much time on this, and then you can see exactly what you're doing wrong, what you're misinterpreting, like, real life and images and that kind of thing. And how you can correct that. I think it's very helpful to try to use reference for whenever you're struggling or you think something is off but you don't know exactly what. A lot of times your brain kind of interprets shapes and proportions kind of weirdly. There's a disconnect between what you see and what you draw, like something happens in your brain. So a lot of times using reference and trying to be a little bit realistic with that, doing studies, it will help you improve. The next thing about self-critiquing your artwork is if you are having trouble seeing flaws or understanding what's wrong with your artwork, taking inspiration from the masters is a great idea. Even though you might think that oil paintings from the 1600s are stuffy or not the style you're going for, they're basically tried and true techniques for like amazing art. They are the masters and the most amazing pieces of art out there. I'm thinking Rembrandt and Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Pre-Raphaelite art, that kind of thing. And so taking a look at those paintings will help you a lot with your anatomy, lighting, colors, composition, even subjects of what you're painting. You can see how amazing pieces of artwork that are sometimes very realistic, sometimes not really, how they're interpreted by the minds of these brilliant artists, how they were able to create masterpieces. And then you can take those ideas that you've seen in master paintings and apply them to your own artwork. Sometimes it's very interesting to see how women can be portrayed in classical paintings without the perfectly thin necks and tiny jaws and huge eyes and small noses, but they can still look really beautiful and I mean even more like real people than, like, for example, the kind of art that I draw. I draw a lot of things that are very conventionally pretty, you know? And so sometimes it's cool to step back and see that other kind of features, not the ones that are conventionally like pasted into our brains, like very thin, slender, small noses. Like, that's what's beautiful. You can take some of that like raw realism from masters and translate it into your own artwork. I don't do that too much. I don't do any of these things too much. So I should be talking to myself right now, kind of am. But they're just kind of things that I've noticed, you know, like tiny little improvements that you can make when you're critiquing your artwork. Also, taking inspiration from classical painters is great when you're having problems with comparing yourself to contemporary artists and, you know, jealousy, that kind of thing. When you compare yourself to a contemporary artist, you're also comparing yourself to their level of success, notoriety, fame, money, all that kind of stuff. When you look at the master painters, they're all dead. It's really hard to be jealous of somebody who lived 400 years ago and never had social media, and so it's much more beneficial to practice with master painters and paintings. By the way, all of this is like practicing your artwork, but you know, self-critique leads to improvement, which with improvement you need to practice. So I keep switching the topic a tiny bit, but you know what I'm saying. All this kind of stuff will help you with your critique of your artwork. The next thing that I want to say is that you should be able to differentiate between style and mistakes. Make sure that you're bending the rules purposefully and not accidentally, and then just passing those accidents off as your style. A lot of people do that. I do that sometimes. Little moment of truth there. So if you exaggerate your proportions or perspective, you have to evaluate whether you're doing that because of a lack of understanding of how to draw correctly, or if you know how to draw the proper thing, you've practiced it, and now you're deliberately switching up the rules because you want to and you think it looks interesting, you know? You know very well what your situation is when you're drawing, when you're very familiar with anatomy, proportions, lighting, colors, value shades, all that stuff, all the good stuff about art theory, then you can make informed decisions when you want to break the rules. I think an understanding of the fundamentals of art is very important when you're analyzing your artwork and looking at your mistakes. Yeah, if you have any problems with certain areas, then definitely I would suggest doing some studies of nature, people, real life, still life, that kind of thing. The next thing that I have to say is don't be too critical of your artwork. That kind of contradicts the previous point about don't pass off mistakes as your style, because that's being too lenient with your artwork, you know? But don't be too critical. Sometimes there are happy mistakes. You might see something as a flaw, but somebody can interpret it as just an element of that piece, you know? And so if a couple of people have given you feedback that they don't see that particular thing as a flaw, then that might be a good thing. It could be something very unique to that one piece or your artwork in general. The next thing that I want to say is to make sure that your criticism is objective and fair. So if you're new to a certain medium or subject, don't beat yourself up about your lack of understanding or skill. Practice will always lead to improvement, so don't get too frustrated when you're tackling a new territory, especially when you're trying out a new medium or subject. It's not fun. So be objective when you're critiquing that kind of stuff. Don't put yourself down too much. And the next point is don't be too harsh, you know? So the purpose of critiquing your artwork is to improve, not to put yourself down. And so you should be encouraged when you see mistakes in your art, because it's much better to see them and be able to fix them, or know that there's a problem and look for a solution, rather than to not see them at all, be super happy with your artwork, and then months or years later you go back and you're just horrified at things that you didn't even know were mistakes you couldn't have imagined, you know? And so don't feel too badly if you do see mistakes in your artwork. that's a good thing. It means that you can improve, and also you have an eye for this kind of stuff. It's really cool when you can see the mistakes in your artwork. That's literally one of my biggest fears, is that I can't see the mistakes in my own artwork and I'm so happy with them. And then, you know, much later I'll go back and be horrified by what I made. So if you can't see the mistakes in your artwork, take that as a good thing, not a bad thing. You know, you can always improve. There's room for improvement for everybody. For example, this one drawing that I made, kind of weird on the proportions and stuff. The hands are really tiny and not very good looking, but it's okay. The next piece I make, I know to improve, and it'll be fine. By the way, if you want to buy this drawing with these tiny little hands, it will be up in my shop. The link will be down in the description. And I will actually be closing my shop on the 20th, August 20th. So I'm still selling original artwork at the moment. If you see anything you like, please go grab it. That would really mean a lot to me if you could support me that way. But yeah, I'm gonna be closing my shop officially August 20th. I still have my Society 6 where you can buy prints and goodies and stuff like that with my art on them. Everything will be linked down in the description. But yeah, if you could grab something from my shop, I would really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. All my social media is down in the description. And as I mentioned before, if you have any tips on self-criticism, please leave them down in the description. This is definitely not an all-encompassing kind of video. I don't know too much about this topic. I'm just letting you know the kind of stuff that I do and that works for me personally. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you guys in my next video next week. And if you want to, please subscribe because I put out new videos every single Sunday. Talk to you guys next week. Bye!